World Fraser Mac Gaming and Fraser Mac. This is the latest video in my Fraser Mac Gaming news series, where I go through the latest news for the Switch, cover the games coming to everyone's favourite hybrid system, and I have the occasional rant when something really pisses me off. Today I'm going to run through my favourite retro releases and indie games from May. I'm making this video retrospectively, obviously, so I'm able to base it on some of what I've played of these games and also some of the reviews and content I've seen about them. So which games do I love, which games are an absolute bargain, and what are my favourite Switch games for May 2019? Find out after this. First up on our list of my favourite games from May on Switch is Swords of Ditto Mormo's Curse. So as you can tell straight away, it is a Zelda tribute game, going back to the old top-down 2D games, but it has a very modern feel and art style. So it is from One Bit Beyond, and it's published by Devolver Digital. It was teased as part of the 2018 Devolver Digital E3 conference, just in a bit of a sizzle reel. I have played several hours of it. I was drawn straight into the art style, and obviously I do like a Zelda game, more of a Mario fan, but it has some really interesting elements. It is a roguelite in some ways, that your character can die, and then actually another descendant, another hero will reappear to try and take on the challenge of defeating Mormo's Curse. It will have an impact on the story as it goes on. There's, you can play solo, co-op, there's a lot of interesting weapons, items and stickers, there's boss fights. I can see how it is an interesting game. If you really love top-down Zelda games, I think you'll have fun with it. I think the pacing could be improved, but Swords of Ditto Mormo's Curse is out now on Switch with lots of extra content, so check it out if that's something you're interested in. Like I said in the intro, this is a video that's going to have some retro games on it as well, so you should be familiar with the Arcade Archives if you've got your Switch and had it for a while. The latest release as part of the Arcade Archives is a hamster classic. It's Terra Force, so it's only £6.29 or $8 in the States, so some people complain saying that's maybe expensive for a re-release of an old game, but this is a fantastic way to get accustomed or get to play retro games that you maybe wouldn't have had a chance to own or even play before. You maybe have heard of or seen something online. But yes, it's from Nichibutsu. It was released in 1987 originally, and obviously it's a masterpiece. So I don't know a massive amount of it, but obviously I love all these 2D side-scrolling top-down shooters. I love all the arcade releases. I buy quite a lot of them. I loved even just to try some of them. I find some of them quite difficult, but they usually have some interesting elements that allow you to continue or to try the original Japanese or Asian release and the Western version if there was two different copies. So, I'm sure there's fun. They're fairly cheap. Terra Force is available now, so try it out if you're a fan of shooters. The third game on the list is something that is definitely well outside my usual remit. It is, of course, Valhalla, a cyberpunk bartender action. So from Sukaban Games, it is a bit of a cult classic. A lot of people love it. Limited run games are even doing releases of it as well, and it's got a physical release on the Switch, so it's only $10.99 or $15, and essentially it is a very story-driven game. You play as a bartender in the bar called Valhalla in downtown Glitch City. It's a kind of dystopian, futuristic city. There's a wide variety of different people who come into the bar. You need to befriend them, seek out information, and as you learn their drinks, their preferences, their personalities, you get to know them better, and it develops the story and affects what happens in the future. It's something I'm going to try, and I'm going to pick up the physical copy from Play Asia when it releases, and I'm looking forward to it. We're moving back into my comfort zone of gaming right now, and it is a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. Obviously, it's Black Paradox from Fantastical Studios. Some of you who watch the channel regular might be familiar with it. I've talked about it before. I've got a full review on the channel, so a card will be in the top right of the screen if you want to know more detail about the game. Essentially, as you can see, it is a side-scrolling 2D shoot-'em-up. It's very much based on those the 16-bit era, retro shoot-'em-ups that people know and love. It was a mobile game. It is very similar to Sterling Binary Stars. I would say it's not in that same class. There are some issues. It has procedural generation, some random elements to the game. So I'd say that there's some issues with that spikes the difficulty levels at times. But there's lots of weapons, lots of power-ups. You've got add-ons, different things you can add on there. The music's fantastic. It's got a lot of movie references in there. You've got a DeLorean that you fly as. So it is very interesting. You can play it local co-op. lovely pixel art. So Black Paradox, I would recommend it, but it has some rough elements around the edges. Another retro inspired game, and it is obviously the follow up to Retro City Rampage from V-Blank. It is Shakedown Hawaii. So it's been long hyped, I've been waiting for it for a long time. Shakedown Hawaii is actually here. I've already bought it and started playing through some of the early levels and starting to build my empire. It is essentially an homage or a tribute back to the old classic Grand Theft Auto, the top-down kind of 2D pixel art where it all began. It's a 16-bit open-world game, lots of nostalgia, lots of kind of quirky comedy. The missions are there, different elements. You basically have to try and rebuild an empire after you've got a little bit fat and happy and your crumbling business has fallen behind the times. It pokes a lot of fun at kind of white-collar crime and business practices inside gaming and outside, and you've got to hustle and work your way back to the top again. Shakedown Hawaii is out now, $17.99 in the UK and $20 in the US. We have another retro-inspired top-down pixel art game on the list now. It is Blazing Beaks. It's from Cubic Games, and basically if you're a fan of Enter the Gungeon and obviously those kind of top-down roguelike shooters, this could be right up your street. It's obviously got random elements where each playthrough will be very different. There's 8 playable characters, and you basically have to use your one-of-a-kind bird skills to whack every nasty thing in your way. So yes, there's lots of randomly generated levels, there's lots of secrets, there's lots of mysteries to unravel. There is in fact an actual story mode you can play through alone or in co-op. I think it's local co-op only, but you can also play tournament modes with up to 4 local players, and there's some very interesting rule sets and statistics for each player that will make them all very different to play through. There's lots of weapons, lots of elements to find. It looks interesting, it looks intense. I think obviously don't underestimate just because of the art style. I think obviously Enter the Gungeon and a lot of other games, when they've been done well, the gameplay's fantastic, and Blazing Beaks could be another one to go alongside those games. I did say there was going to be some real retro absolute gems in this video, and Castlevania Anniversary Collection from Konami is obviously available on Switch now. We've since obviously had Contra Collection released as well, but we're going to talk about the Castlevania one right now. Obviously Konami, much derided in the West for a lot of their decisions, but bringing so many great Castlevania games to the Switch is just a fantastic idea. I'm sure it's already sold by the bucket loads, but you've got Castlevania, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, Super Castlevania 4, Castlevania The Adventure, Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge, Castlevania Bloodlines, Kid Dracula, never released in English before, and History of Castlevania Book of the Crescent Moon. So Castlevania Collection is available now. Up next is a bit of a surprise game that I discovered when I was just searching through the eShop. It's from Cubic Games and it's Arcane. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. It is a bargain title. It was only £3.36 on a discount when I got it. It's usually about £4.50 or $5. And essentially it's this very cool kind of cyberpunk, neon synth game. It is an arena game where you basically, it's an arcade slasher. You've got one hit, one kill gameplay. So you have to fight off hordes of enemies that basically just rush you. And you have a wonderful sort of sword, katana, blade that you can take people out with. You can upgrade things, you can add new weapons, guns, etc. And you just basically have to survive as long as you possibly can and fight off ever-increasing numbers of baddies with, different abilities. Work your way through the story as it progresses. So there's lots of different pistols, katanas, unique abilities, gadgets, all sorts of things to pick up along the way. And you've obviously got special abilities. So Arcane, I've tried it already and it's been lots of fun so far, especially for the price. Yep, Gunlord X. So this is another one fantastic for me. Very retro style. Gunlord X is a kind of run and gun modern version of games that you used to have, kind of 16-bit era, sort of also a 32-bit era. It had a very long-winded and interesting story. It was originally released on the Neo Geo in 2012 of all times, and also got an unlicensed release on Dreamcast apparently. It's had lots of attempts to be brought to other systems. It was going to be brought to the 3DS and the Wii U. Apparently that was cancelled. It was going to come to the Chameleon as well, is what I've read about. But Gunlord X, 2019 Switch port. It's got 60 frames per second, intense, fantastic run and gun action, very much in a similar style as Turrican. There's all sorts of fantastic elements to it. It's got some really good reviews so far. Gunlord X is available now on Switch and it's only around $10 or £9. Last but not least, we have another Devolver Digital published game. It's actually from Doinksoft. I believe it's a one-person team. So Gato Roboto is trying to put the meow in Metroidvania. So yes, it's a very cheesy joke, but we have a very retro style, black and white art style Metroidvania. It harks back to obviously the absolute classics, but you are playing essentially as a crash landed, space pilot cat who has to go and basically explore and find a way to free its owner from being trapped underneath a spaceship in a wreckage. Big part of the game is obviously exploration. It's upgrading your abilities, finding new areas that unlock as you progress. It's got a very kind of simplistic art style, but don't underestimate the difficulty. It's a very cute game, but it's very challenging. I've basically hit a roadblock already fairly early on, but Gato Roboto is available on Switch now, and I'd highly recommend it for Metroidvania fans. So that's another 10 great games available now on your Switch, some indies and some retro classics and some collections. I hope you found something on there, so let me know in the comments down below what you've picked up, what you're playing, what you're enjoying, or what you might be picking up soon. I hope there's something in there for everyone. It's become very challenging just to narrow down the list and to keep up with it in terms of money and playtime to get through them. Please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications if this is your first time, and I'll see you in the next video.